Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. And we do record these sessions. So if you don't want to be on camera, feel free to turn your camera off. And today we're going to be talking about vibe coding. So this is one of our curious about sessions. We were really curious about vibe coding and what it is, and we wanted to go ahead and see if anyone else was curious about it as well. And I want to share with you our SDCOE calendar of events. So I put in the chat the link to today's slides. And on slide 2, if you click on calendar of events, you can see all of the events that our EdTech team is offering. Most of those events are our virtual trainings, which are from 4 to 5 in the afternoons. You'll also see that some of our training offerings are Experience, Create, Facilitate, which are 2-day in-person experiences where you can learn about a specific skill or thing that we do within our Linda Vista Innovation Center, and then you can bring it back to your classroom with coaching and hands-on experiences. I'm Carrie Lane, and I am a project specialist on the Ed Tech team, and I'm here today with two of my colleagues. So, Pam, I will let you introduce yourself.
Oh, hey, I'm Pam Rabin. I'm also a technology person. I'm a coordinator. Sorry, I caught myself a little off guard. I got people saying goodbye to me. But I'm super excited to be here. Carrie and I have been talking about vibe coding for a long time, and I think it'll be a fun class.
And we also have here Alicia. Alicia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia Gallegos Butters. I'm the director of EdTech, and I am super excited about learning about vibe coding because it is something that I knew nothing about a couple weeks ago, and I was able to answer the New York Times crossword, which had a question about it just recently after going over these slides.
And Alicia is going to share a little bit about our professional learning credits as well.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. So for those of you that are interested, we have partnered up this semester for professional learning credits for coming to these sessions through USD. So if you click on the link here, but then you can also click on our main page as well, that has a list of all our professional developments. There is a link there that says, here's the information about the professional learning credits. So you do, for one credit, you do have to attend at least 12 of these sessions. Maybe it's 13. I think it's actually 13 of these sessions and do reflections on each one. And then once you've done that, we can provide with USD one professional learning credit.
Perfect. Thanks, Alicia. And I'm just sharing the reflection sheet as well as the sign in. If you are doing the credits, we need you to sign in. And then also at the end of this, you'll submit a reflection sheet. Those are going into the chat right now. All right. And if you have any questions about vibe coding, you can always feel free to email any of us. My contact email is on this slide deck, as well as the link to today's resources. And what we're going to do today is we're going to understand the concept of vibe coding. So we're just going to look at what vibe coding is because a lot of us don't know, or if we do know, we're not really sure how that takes its form in education. So we'll talk about that and then we'll look at some different vibe coding platforms. And at the very end, we'll leave you with something that you can explore on your own. So we have a bit of a challenge slash assignment for you that is optional. But if you want to try kind of creating your own vibe coded app, we'll give you that opportunity toward the end. And Pam is going to share this with you now. Pam, you're on mute.
That's my other thing. I just said I was a geek, and I'm on mute. So, all right. But here's what I wanted to say. So, Carrie, I'll ask you to click on the video in just a second. But every time I think about how much technology has changed, I remember this scene, and I'm probably dating myself from Star Trek 4. It's the movie, for those of you who may have seen it, where Earth is being attacked by some intergalactic, space tube of terror. And it's a tube of terror that only speaks whale, of course. And, so humanity's already wiped out all the whales. And Kirk and his crew, they're now middle-aged, have to go back to San Francisco in 1986 to save the whales and bring them back to the future so they can save Earth, right? So, Carrie, go ahead and play the clip. I want you to see the clip. I don't want to really introduce it because I just want you to experience it. And then I'll let you know how this all relates to vibe coding.
Computer? Computer? Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
The keyboard. How quaint.
All right. So I love this clip because it really recently hit me like how futuristic voice interaction with a computer felt back then when I was a kid watching this movie for the first time. And even like in my not too distant past, right? The idea that you could just walk up to a computer, speak in natural language, and have it do something for you. And, how quickly we're picking up this now as a way of just interacting with AI. So we're going to be talking about vibe coding, but really that idea that you can go up and talk to a computer versus having to code is kind of our big theme for here today. And that idea of what once felt impossible is suddenly now becoming an everyday kind of occurrence. All right, next slide, please. So let's make this personal for a moment. I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to set my timer here on my phone for just about 30 seconds. I'd like for you to think, like, have you ever thought if I could just make a quick app for this one idea that I have, and then you just kind of hit the creativity wall because you don't know how to code. And it goes into that pile of things you think you would have done if you could have done it, right? So what if you could, with no coding required, build an app right now, school life, private life, whatever, what would it be and what would it change for you? So 30 seconds. After that 30 seconds, I'll say it's fine, unmute if you'd like, or you can put it in the chat. If you're driving, please just safely drive and listen along with us. All right, so we got 30 seconds. We're at 25 seconds now. Just give it a think, put some stuff in the chat. Let us know. What would you create? All right, we're at 6 seconds. 2, 1. Go ahead and pop those questions in there or ideas in there. And is there anyone who wants to unmute and give us your latest idea? I'm seeing grading and feedback app that works in real time, giving suggestions. Cool.
Yeah, that one was mine. You guys all need to sign a non-disclosure and non-use agreement.
Exactly, right? Okay, we're coining it now. This is his idea. Create some of my favorite math worksheets. Okay.
Yeah, so I learned about vibe coding at this conference I went to not long ago, and some of my favorite like math activities. It's hard to do all the math in person, like in the class, especially with kids who don't know how to do math very, very well all the time.
Okay,
So,
cool.
I've actually already made a bunch of games using vibe coding already. I'm making them like education arcade. We'll put it in the chat.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's my life's goal is to retire someday and just make free apps for people.
Yes,
with my
exactly.
tech
I'm
background.
putting it right there in the chat.
All right, thanks so much. Any other ideas? Anyone else want to share? All right, we're going to move on. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to share. I'm a special education teacher, and I've been struggling to find like the specific types of worksheets that I need for my students. Like some of them, if they're learning regrouping, they need that box, that visual reminder that this is where your regrouping is. Some of them it infuriates to no end. So I'm interested in like trying to create an app that would, sorry about the birds, be able to, easily create these things instead of having to go through countless PDFs, every time I want something slightly different.
Cool. All right.
And Wade, just to jump in, we also do a lot of accessibility sessions. That's something that I'm really passionate about and lead. And we have some about AI and accessibility. So we might be able, if you are able to attend that one, we might be able to share some other tools and things that might be useful for you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so thank you for sharing. And now let's jump into vibe coding. So just a show of a thumbs up or a little emoji. How many of you have heard of vibe coding? We know at least a couple have been doing it. Or a yes in the chat. Okay, I see a
Thanks,
couple.
Wade.
All right. So more people knew about vibe coding than we expected. It was something that was pretty new to us as of September. And so what vibe coding is it's where you describe to AI what you want, and you let AI take your flow of ideas and turn it into apps, games, classroom tools through code. And so really it's coding without knowing coding and programming language, using just your day-to-day conversation, the same conversation that you would have to get AI to create a picture for you or to create a recipe list or whatever else you talk to AI for and get it to create things for you. It can do the same thing with code, and that's vibe coding, taking your ideas and then having AI create it into an app or program. And so, a brief history of vibe coding, and it is really brief because the term was coined in 2025 in February by somebody on Twitter. And his post is right here, where he explained that vibe coding is just giving into your vibes and forgetting that code even exists. And so, as he said it, he was explaining that really it's just for something usually that is a quick weekend app, something that's not so intense or needing to be perfect, but just something where you can go with the flow and talk to AI as you want to build something out. And so it's focusing on ideas and design and then letting AI write and refine the code. And so, of course, when we heard about this, our first thought was, okay, this is awesome. How can we use this in education? And for education, one of the things that we really like is that it's not just for coders. So it's for our students who maybe have a little bit of background in coding or want to know how to code, but don't yet know how to code. And for our teachers who have all sorts of ideas but really don't have that background to be able to turn those ideas into something that their students or their classroom can use. So it makes coding more accessible. And for our students and for us, it really opens up the door for creativity and exploration, making things that otherwise we might not be able to do possible. But best practices, and our team talks about AI a lot. We talk about AI in the context of writing and teaching and learning. And one of our guidelines for AI is always that one of the best practices is AI can be a great tool that can help you, can help your students. However, we don't want it to replace the learning or the skills. And so with AI and vibe coding, we really want to keep those same practices of encouraging our students to use it as a tool. So if we're teaching coding, having them explore the back end of the vibe code and continue learning coding while watching the vibe coding happen. If they're not learning about coding, talking about the future applications of how they can take the skills they've learned from this conversation and apply it in the future if they are going to learn how to code. And also recognizing that really what the vibe coding is going to create is often a building block. And so that refined, perfect product won't come from vibe coding nearly as much as it will come from having those innate skills and that understanding of how to code. So, Alicia, over to you for a second.
Okay, so what we would like for you to do is do a kind of a vibe coding check. And again, more people knew about this than we anticipated. So if you could just put a sentence or two in the chat to tell us in your own words what vibe coding is? And then do you see any similarities with vibe coding and how you use AI in your subjects or your curriculums? So just take a moment, if you could put that in your chat. So we're doing a quick knowledge check on you. And if you don't want to type it, which is fine, you can also unmute yourself and let us know in your own words. But we have some people using natural language input. I love the natural language. And for some basic principles or an easy way to have AI create, yes. Experimenting with coding, great. Excellent.
And I do like the answer of a cooler way of talking or prompting with AI. And so we talk a lot about the idea of prompt engineering and how it is a skill that students need to learn as they dive into the world of AI, how to converse with AI, how to have those best prompts to get the results they want. And so this is another cooler application of thinking of prompt engineering. And as you move forward and we demo more of how this works, you'll see the iterative nature of that prompt engineering. So I really like that answer as well.
Anybody want to share how they, oh, sorry, Carrie.
You're good, Alicia. Keep going.
Oh, no, I just wanted to go back to the other slide, please. Anybody want to share any similarities they see between the use of the AI and their curriculums? And you can unmute yourself if you do. Okay.
So vibe coding works in 4 simple steps. The first thing that you do with vibe coding is you describe the outcome that you're looking for. What do you want for the app or the program that you want to create? You describe it to the AI just like you would describe it in any other platform that you would type into AI. And AI, just like in any other generative platform, goes ahead and translates your outcome into an output. The only difference is that that output is now going to be code. And so once you see the code, and we'll demo this, then you have the opportunity to see that code, test the code out, and refine your code through just typing or, prompting rather than through debugging code. And so I will say that as I was diving into this and testing out different platforms, most of the time it took me 2 to 3 times to really get all of the different things that I wanted to be able to be functional. So that's just something to know that testing and iteration is really important in step 3. And then step 4, depending on your program, you're going to implement the code. And so some of the platforms that we explore will just give you the code and then you need to put it into a new program, a compiler, someplace to execute the code. However, because we really wanted this to just be a basic session, we found 5 platforms where you can get that code and you can basically hit go or hit the button to get the code and it will create that app or program right there and it can be shared out from there. So depending on which program you're using, you may have to take an extra step of implementing the code, but with the ones we're going to talk about today, it'll just basically exist for you and then you share it out. And some of the ways that we thought you could use this would be creating apps for learning, like you all shared in the previous chat. prototyping for STEM. So as I mentioned, this is a great way to create those quick prototypes. I remember when I was in grad school, we had to do prototypes of websites, and our prototypes were always the linked Google Slides where you could just click on a button and it would go somewhere else. And it looked like a website, but it was in slides. Now you can actually make a prototype within minutes that looks and feels like a viable website. So it's pretty cool. And then engaging students in computational thinking, because students can start to recognize what patterns they're seeing in the code and what outputs they're getting and how to change that. And I'll turn it over to Pam.
Okie. Okay, vibe coding, it's powerful, and you can sketch what you want, you can hit go, and suddenly you have this working app, but it's not magic, right? So it kind of feels like it sometimes, but it has its limits, and we're going to walk through a little bit of what some of these risks are. So I feel like I have to be the party pooper here in saying all this, but it really struggles when it comes to more complex coding. So making simple apps is going to be better than if you're trying to make something with lots of different moving parts that have to be kind of kept track of, right? So we'll say too that in this idea of needing refinement or optimization, even if your app works, the code's not necessarily optimized. The next part down, we call that kind of eloquent design, that it's streamlined. It means that there is a human in the mix of all of this, trying to make the code make sense so that there's less entry points for security issues. If you're going in to debug something, you have a better sense of where you might start looking for it. So the structure sometimes tends to be kind of ad hoc because your basically creation of it is very ad hoc. You create something to begin with, and then you say, oh, hey, could you go in and tweak this thing a little bit, or add this part, or change that, or now I want to be able to send it to my family, something like that. And it's just kind of adding the code. And if you don't understand how that code is structured or how it's designed, you're not going to know just looking at the side of the interface where you're coding whether or not it really makes sense or not. And because of that, again, it can be hard to debug. It can have security risks, especially when you start getting into privacy considerations. If you're doing something and you're inputting student information, that's again a big caution there with any type of AI, to make sure you know what you're adding in and that there's no personally identifiable information that you're going to be potentially putting at risk. It also, let me look my notes here. Because it is using a lot of RAM, we're noticing this pattern of spiking prices for this random access memory, right? So it's creating a demand for computing resources, which also has sort of energy and environmental issues going along with it. So again, bottom line, it can be a great shortcut, but if you're trading in this kind of idea of long-term sustainability, right? Something that is going to be more able to be used with many people, having the security issues, that's kind of the caution with it, right? It's great for prototypes, it's great for proof of concept, and it might be even great for showing a real true developer what an app can look like. But unless you kind of know what you're doing, just don't suggest you put it online and go make your millions off of it until you really know what you're doing. All right, so if you get next slide, great. I wanted to kind of share this cautionary tale with you then. So there's a guy, and I removed his name from here, so I'll just kind of refer to him as Mr. Naive, who was on X not too long ago, and he was very proudly sharing that he had built this entire site using vibe coding. And he was kind of mouthing off a little bit though, no formal coding background, no engineers, I'm just using AI. And it worked really well until he basically started kind of, let's say, angering some of the people when he went public, right? So then he starts saying things, like, oh, what is it? I'm not following the people who know what coding is anymore. I'm just going to follow founders and hackers and design and vibe coders. I don't need these people anymore. And he was sort of saying, being an expert now is not something that's needed. So all of those experts kind of came around. And if you want to click the next just click through it. That'll make that blue box disappear. You can see what happened when people started kind of responding to these kind of cocky comments that he was making. He's kind of now sending out things like, hey guys, I'm under attack. And you've got people who are making random things happening. They're breaking into his code. They're getting around his paywall. And they're just kind of posting some things that he probably didn't intend to have on his site to the point where he had to pull his site down. So as it turns out, coding, security, the design, all of that is important. If you believe him, he made $400,000 in a year, so maybe he cried all the way to the bank after pulling that down. I don't know. But I thought I'd share that. It was an interesting thing that had happened out there. All right, next slide is you, Carrie, I think.
All right, so now that Pam has gone in and shared the limitations and some cautions with vibe coding, we are going to show you some vibe coding platforms. Of course, the natural progression of things, scare you and then show you how to do it. So we have this chart here, and it has 5 different tools that are pretty easy to get started with vibe coding. And most of these have a free tier or a freemium option. So if you're interested in learning what they do and their pricing, the links are all there. But what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through and demo a few different ones. And so we're going to get started with one, which is Google AI. And what I'm going to do is I just made a few prompts that I'm going to put into the different platforms so you can see how they work. Of course, there are so many different ones out there, so always feel free to use whatever works best for your district, whatever's approved by your district, things like that. So once you have a prompt, just like in most AIs, you're just going to go ahead and hit build. And then you'll notice that it pulls up a screen where on the left, it has the option to talk to it. And then on the right, it's going to take some time to develop a platform you can look at. Yes, thank you, Pam, for putting that in. It's really important as you are using AI to check in with your district's policies and make sure that you're using approved apps before you go ahead and use it in your district. And of course, as Pam mentioned, we put in here in our prompt, being careful of PPI. It might be useful to create pseudonyms for your students as you're creating these apps. So I'll just give it usually takes about a minute or two to develop. And in terms of prompting, in addition to saying what you want the app to look like, it's recommended that you be as specific as possible. So if you want 5 buttons, explain the buttons and how you want them to look. And the more you explain, the more it will come up with at the beginning. And then, of course, you can change it up as you see it. And so this is my first version of the app that it created for me. And so you can see I have my random pseudonyms for my students, and then I have these different buttons, and when I click on a button, now it goes ahead and it's a little bit glitchy. So I'm clicking on participation and it's lighting up other people. So I would go in here and I would start to say that this isn't working. The other thing that I've noticed that doesn't work at the beginning is usually the resetting. So we'll check that. And it's not resetting. And so I would say the 3 buttons for participation, teamwork, and creativity are not accurate when clicked, and the reset button doesn't work. And so I'll put that in and it'll take some time. And like I said, usually for me so far, it's taken 3 to 4 times for each of these things to fix themselves to be the way that I want them to be. And you can add a student. So that one is working. It adds a pseudonym and then you hit add to class. And so that's how that one works. I might pull this one back up later, but for now, we'll also dive into a couple of others. So the next one we have on here is Base 44. This one, again, is a freemium. And so if, for example, your district doesn't allow you to use Google AI, then perhaps you want to find something else. And so this might be another freemium one that you could do. And so this is a new app that I thought we could create. And I just type it in, I hit the arrow, it does the same basic thing where it builds out my ideas. This one's a little faster, I've noticed. And while that's building, let me go back into here. So this one is still changing it, but I do want to point out that you can see the different device views. So you can see it as a mobile, you can see it as a tablet view, and then you can go ahead and you can deploy the app or you can share it out. So that's really how you go about creating and utilizing sharing that app. And then this one, still making it, looks like, is similar. So you can deploy it by hitting publish and you can share. And you'll see here, you have the text area here, but in this one in the dashboard, you can also see the code once it has the code, but it hasn't written it yet. So I'll come back to this one and we'll get another one working. And so we'll create another app. This one is Claude, so another platform that you can upgrade, have a freemium version or a free version. I'll hit the arrow. And while that's working, we'll come back. And so this one's interesting because you can see the code right there as you use it, which is also useful because then if you do have another platform that you use for compiling code, you can copy the code into something else. So that's one of the benefits of this one, is just that you see the code as it goes and you can change it if you know how to use code. So this one's still building. I was wrong that it was the quicker one. Ah, there we go. So I have my preview. It's an exit ticket. I can check the buttons. Okay, these buttons seem to be working. I can reset all. That seems to be working. So this one, and I have add student, that seems to be working. So this one seems like it's a little less glitchy on my first try. I can switch it to mobile view. And like I said, if you want to go ahead and see the code, you go to dashboard and then you can go to code. And when you go to the different pages, you can start to see the different code that you can edit from here, or again, you can talk into here. And let's go back to our Claude. So this one is the same thing. It starts to talk you through what it's doing. And then this is what it looks like. We've got our stations. We can determine how many stations we want. We can add students. We can change the names of our stations, add groups. And when I hit start rotations, I have this timer that starts to go. I can move into the next rotation. So this one actually worked pretty well as well without me even having to make any changes. For a first go, pretty good. And if I want to grab the code, you can always look for this broken bracket symbol, and that's going to get me back to the code that I can change. Before I move into anything else, are there any questions we have? So in this one, I do believe I've had mostly JavaScript in terms of the programming language, but I'm not sure whether they all do. So maybe Pam on the back end, you could look up the common languages. Yes, that's true as well. You can say, I want you to use HTML, CSS, but by default, I know that at least a couple of them were JavaScript, but all right, let's go into the next one, which is Glide. So that one is a freemium one as well. Did anyone else have any questions? And so what I like about this one is it automatically starts you out on the layout that you might be using. So you can change it, but it does start you out looking like a phone layout or looking like a tablet layout. And so then it asks you, do you want to use sample data or do you want to import your own? So this would be somewhere where you do have to be careful because especially if you are on a free plan, you don't want to import your own personal identifiable information. So I'm just going to hit sample data to start quickly, but you can upload CSVs for your own data. And I see a question about compilers. I've used a couple of different ones. I'm trying to remember the names of them. They're the pretty generic ones. If you give me a second, once I turn it over to Alicia again, I will look up and find a couple of the ones that we've used. But I think whatever you usually use should work for you. So this is an example of what it created on here. The plus button works. You can add in, it has all of these different fields. Once I've typed in it, I can submit. And so again, just an example of how it works. You can hit publish and share it out. And then the last one, which I do want to spend a little bit more time on, just because I know that a lot of teachers are using Canva. And so with Google, of course, your school may or may not be using it. Same with Claude. And then the other ones are, free/freemium platforms. But with Canva, a lot of teachers are already using it. So in Canva, they have an AI feature, and the link is in the slides. And so here, you can describe an idea, and then if you go to code and you hit the arrow, it will start to create code and vibe code for you. And so I'll give it a second. And how are these shared out via a link? Yes, so you can share it out via a link. There are lots of different options for sharing. So once you hit share and it's published, you can share it as a link. You can email it to people. You can add users. So similar to most other platforms, there are those varieties of different ways that you share things out. And so let me jump back into Canva. Any other questions while this is loading? Okay, and so this is now my example on Canva. And what I do like about this one, so you've got the same options for things, you can reset, you can have a conversation with it. It shows you the versions and you can go back to previous versions like this, and it can show you the code, but you have a few different options on this one. So you can use it in a design and turn it into a website. You can also make it a presentation, a doc, or make it into a whiteboard. And so if you hit publish, it'll just become a website that you can then share out via link. And you have settings for that. But you can also, if you'd rather it be something that you're more familiar with, maybe a presentation or something like that, you can also do that. And the way that I learned about this is we do a lot of escape rooms in our work, and somebody was telling me that they've created entire escape rooms for their classroom using this Canva code. So just vibe coding escape rooms, which is kind of cool. All right, so those are some of our demos, and I will turn it over to Pam to look at some vibe coding app examples, and I will put in the chat some of the compilers.
Perfect. All right, so I was just going around and trying to figure out information about what people have already created and find some examples for you. So I wasn't going to have Carrie click on these different examples, kind of looking at our time. But there are things out there. So this person, Michael Lembo, he created a professional website which is not uncommon, but he used the vibe coding to actually create the website. And kind of the interesting part about it, and I'm even wondering like how well this works, was that he has a chat bot within his personal website where you can just ask questions. So the concept here was, well, sometimes people don't want to go and read through the whole curriculum vitae. I don't know how to say that word. But they want to know something specific. You could go over to my chat box and bot and say, what kind of credentials does this person have? And hopefully it would give them good information. But they embedded that and they used vibe coding to do this. Someone else, her name's Maddie Osman. She created an app that's very much like Yelp, and it's called Taste. Only what was interesting here was, if you imagine, and I guess, yeah, thank you, Carrie. It's basically a smaller micro community, right? So Yelp has people from all over San Diego or all over the world really giving you suggestions on restaurants, and you can kind of see how many people like it. But if you really just wanted something that was more local to you, people you actually know, I think that was the idea behind the app that this person created. The next one on here was just a guy, Matt Medeiros, who created a game. It's the Rocket Fuel Rush one. Reminded me a lot of a program out there right now people are using, and I believe we've talked about it on our own webinars and things, called Jeopardy, which allows students to create video games, usually using natural language, and they kind of see it evolve as they're writing it out. So it is a form of vibe coding. And this is just another app that's out there for students. But again, you're building in natural language. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing the game kind of play out. You can make changes as you go. It's a little more structured in Jeopardy because they know they're working with kids. And it's a little more focused on actually teaching the coding. But that's kind of that same idea. There was also something called Mixcard. And Carrie, really don't click on this one. It's kind of weird. I thought it was interesting. But basically, you can take any Spotify playlist that you want and create a postcard out of it and send that to someone, but there's no graphics. It's just your list of songs. Finally, there's Lenny's newsletter. And if you will click on that, Carrie, that gives a whole bunch of examples of what people have created. So it's just a link to another website where there's examples of things. What I found interesting was I kind of got inspired to go and create my own app. So over here on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see a picture of my dog, Lulu. And I was trying to think to myself, what would I create if I had an app? Well, not too long ago, and sadly to say they're no longer with us, but I had 3 dogs total. And between the two elderly dogs and all of their medications and all of the special foods that they needed and the walks we needed to take them on, and for a family of 4 trying to take care of 3 dogs, 2 of whom had these list of medications, I think there were 15 medications long that had to be given quite a few times a day. I thought, well, maybe I could create an app that would help my family keep track of who has done what for our dogs. And so what you're seeing there is a picture of the interface, my first attempt at it, where you can add a pet, you can add the medication, you can check, it's basically a checkoff list for our family. I was able to refine it a little more and kind of add a space for notes. And I just went back and forth kind of talking to the system. This was in Lovable. And I got myself out of it here, but let me see if I can get back into it. Because Carrie, I was going to say, if we have time, I could show it and on the back end. So I'll go to all projects.
Absolutely, Pam.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
You want to switch screens and stop sharing?
Yep. Can I drive? All right, thanks. And make sure I choose the right one. Now, Lovable, I don't know why I chose it, except somebody else had used it. It is not freemium, just heads up on that one right away. I think that's screen 3. Yep. Okay. So this is the interface for Lovable. This is the Pet Pal tracker that I began to create. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on that project. And what it's going to show you is the same thing Carrie was showing you. You have the left-hand side, you've got all of the conversation that I had going on with this app. I love that I got a leaked password warning because it's my just generic password that I use for when I don't care. But But, you know, I started in just telling it that it was a home veterinary assistant and I wanted it to help me build an app and very specifically giving it my intention. And as I went through just kind of going back and forth and trying things out, there are times where it will actually do the code and I have to allow it. That uses up credits that they have given me. I think it's $25 for 100 credits. And again, I'm just playing with this, so I'm not going to continue subscribing to it much past today. But you can see that I've gone through all these different iterations of conversations. So if I go on this side, I can sign into it. This is pretty much what it's going to look like when I'm using it. It's a website. I didn't tell it I wanted to make an app or anything. And you can see again, so I added my pet Lulu. I can edit my information about her. And these were all things I told I wanted to be able to do, add some special notes for it. I can invite people from my household. I can create a join code for them, just like you would with apps that you use with their students. And then as people are logged in, we can look and say, okay, yeah, I gave her morning dose of medicine. It'll check that one off for my family. I can go through and say, yeah, I walked her in the morning. And then I could add some daily notes down at the bottom. The other thing I was like, hey, you know, it would also be nice if we have these appointments for them to know when it is, who's taking her, you know, those kinds of things. So I created a section down here for upcoming appointments, and all of that was just through conversations. And I'm actually amazed at how well it did come together. Now, would I go make my fortune off of this? No. Is it pretty much low stakes information if this got out there? Yes. So it's been fun to play with and interesting to see kind of how that AI acts. It didn't need me to do anything else. That's another interesting thing I found about it. And I don't know whether all of the compilers and things are internal within this, but I just said, hey, make me a way I can invite my family, and it did it. It is storing information for me, I'm assuming, on their database, their servers. So that's another question around security. What kind of information? How do they store it? Are they selling my dog's information? I don't know all the answers to these questions, but those are questions that I would be asking definitely around, you know, how secure is their network, kind of questions like that. So Carrie, I'm going to give it back to you.
Perfect. And I saw in the chat that someone asked about it showing one of the examples of the activities. So let me share my screen again, and I will pull that up. So, okay. So back in our Canva, let me see where it is. So here, when you click on Reading Corner, let's just enter my pseudonym C, and let's claim activity. And so in this case, what it's doing is it's just saying that when it's clicking on the card, you can claim it, like saying that it's done. And so if I wanted to turn it into something where they were actually seeing the activity, I would need to do a version 2 and a version 3. And so it's always good, like I said, to check, and I didn't check this one, but it's good to check to make sure that you've put in something. I guess in my directions, I didn't make that clear enough. So here I said it should display 6 to 9 activity cards, and then the card fills up to prevent duplicates, but it didn't actually explain it. So let's see if instead I go in and I say, please turn over the cards and have an activity listed for each of those cards. And so while we move into the next thing, we'll see what it comes up with. But that was a good question and definitely worth always checking for. And then in the chat, I did put in a couple of the compilers that I've used before, but also if you just put in a list of compilers, especially a list of compilers like Visual Studio, you'll see lots of different ones that you can use and kind of explore. So I wasn't able to copy them all in because it keeps giving me the AI overview that gives me the little icons for it, but you'll find lots of them if you just type that in list of compilers. And thank you, Jenny, for sharing this. For those of you who use code.org, the Hour of Code has become Hour of AI. Very cool. So practice with editing, proofing, and debugging. And Alicia, I will turn it over to you while the Canva new version is loading if you want to go over reflections.
Yeah, so what we thought, or how we thought we would end this, is asking you if you could come up with any ideas of how you could use this in some of your lessons that you already have. So, are there ways to integrate vibe coding into your current curriculum? And then also to think about what are some of those different challenges that and benefits that you could see using this in your classroom and also in real life, like Pamela demonstrated. And go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to share that with all of us.
I'll share one way that I've used Lovable.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy.
So as we know that the college, applications just ended on December 1st, but what I did was I just took the CSU freshman guide that they have and I put it in a PDF. Well, it was already in a PDF. I just uploaded the PDF to Lovable and I said, make this interactive for students. That's all I started with those directions, just to see what I would get from it. And what was nice is then the students could then go in, hey, what does this mean? What should I do with this? Without having to go and flip through the whole manual and search for the answer for themselves. They could just type it in the little app.
I love that. It's about working smarter, not harder.
For sure.
Great. Anybody else like to share?
So we have someone in the chat saying that they've started using Canva AI to make some math games and illustrate concepts that are hard to understand. And another person said they can see using Vibe coding to create an accountability tracker for their universal access groups so that they can check off their daily tasks as they do them, and you can monitor from your end to see what they've done for the day. It makes me think of like homework, or not homework trackers, but chore trackers at home. I mean, we used to have the whiteboard, and then nobody would ever remember to update it for my kids, or they wouldn't do the chores anyway. Yeah, I'd like a chore tracker that works.
That's a good one. Yeah, I definitely could have used when I used to have a very large spreadsheet where I would track when I would feed my babies, when they would nap, when they would get up. And I remember using Excel and just tracking it that way. But it would have been very, very helpful to be able to have just a life tracker at that time.
I think about internships sometimes, and we have interns that come here, and there's skills and things that we actually could potentially track for them, so they could have the account. We could also come in and add things to it. Oh, you've been working on this skill or that skill lately. You've done this many hours, so there's some ideas there too.
I'm just curious about like the ability to use it to do some research and maybe polling internship opportunities and things, and also create flyers since I do have a club, robotics and drones and stuff. Maybe use Canva to do the flyers. That's what I'm thinking.
And that actually, Canva is great for that. So I will say it took me 3 versions to get, I think it was Jenny who asked about showing the activities. It's taken 3 versions and it's still not doing what I asked. So I'm going to jump out of that for now. But for you all to know, on the home screen, if you do go to Canva AI, you can create all sorts of things with this. So you can do student activities, you can create AI designs, images, documents. The other thing that you can do is you can upload something that you have. For example, if you have a document and you want to turn it into a PowerPoint, you can do that really easily. So you can hit this plus sign and upload a document and say, turn this into a PowerPoint, and it will basically take all the content and add it into a PowerPoint. It does the same for other types of content too. So like if you want to turn something into a website instead of being a PowerPoint. So really taking what you already have and making it super quick to change the format of it. So great application for that as well.
Thank you. Another one I wanted to clarify, like the website you are putting, don't you have to have a license for that? I mean, I don't know you is that like a website like for example, GoDaddy, you have to pay for a per medium for that, right? I mean, pay money to get the license for it.
It's a really good question. So a lot of these, it's similar to with Google sites where it just finds a unique domain for free that it's like having a link. You know how when you, for example, can take one of your PowerPoints and it has a unique link, it's doing a similar thing to that with those websites. So you don't have to register them and go through all that you would for a paid business type thing. But again, if you are creating a paid business, then I think you need to start to do all the legalities. This is more just for your free classroom projects or for something you might use in your classroom that's like that prototype or initial version of something.
Yeah, I was going to say I noted that Lovable, and I'm assuming some of the other paid versions have this as well at some level. If you want to publish it and have that unique domain name, they have a very convenient button for you that does take you to where you can purchase new domain names and things like that. So, I mean, you could do it through that, or you can connect and, you can go through GoDaddy or whomever you want to go through for that domain name and connect an existing domain name. But I am noticing they kind of are trying, it looks like they're trying to build like an all-in-one stop shop for creating your own apps that would then be, commercialized or something that people start earning money on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Something I wanted to add, Carrie, really quick is just, I've also read a lot about people advising that, rather than going into, like I did, like going into Lovable and having this kind of ad hoc conversation that's unstructured and I'm, kind of figuring things out as I go to your general, and I think, Jeremy, you're the person who says just a cool word for prompting. Go to your general AI, application that you're already using, start planning in there with that, have that back and forth conversation about what should I be putting into Lovable or these other things to get the most, to get the best design that I possibly can and save yourself some back and forth and credits if you're in a paid application like that, to try and kind of get it all organized, I think, before you go in. And I think Carrie was going to share something for that.
Yeah, so I was actually just going to show really quickly, if anyone is interested in trying it out themselves, we have here an app remix sheet. And so what you can do is you can go in and we have the links to all the different platforms that we showed today. And then we have one of the prompts and then just ideas for how you might remix it. And if you're interested in sharing it out with other educators, you can put in your new shared link to practice. And if you want to reflect on it, you can do that too. And so this is absolutely optional. It's got, everybody is able to edit this. So of course, with Google, and when everyone can edit it, it's always risky and there's a chance that someone may delete the whole thing. But hopefully it stays intact and you all just get some practice with this if you're interested. And then I did have some people ask me about compilers. So what I think that's what Pam was talking about, and I won't spend too long because we're at time. But here, if you're looking up compilers, the one I've used before is the Visual Studio Code, or the Visual C++. But when you go into this, you can take that code from any of your from any of the things that you've gotten from ChatGPT or anything else, and you can compile it there. So sorry, went to the wrong thing. And so once you're in here, then you can go ahead and you can use this platform and put your code in. And if you just ask ChatGPT what compiler to use, it'll probably tell you one that will work well too. So, or whichever AI you're using. And that's it for today. I know there was a question about turning Word docs into PowerPoint files, and Pam just shared a video for that. If you still want to see how to do that, I can stay on for a couple of minutes, but everyone else, we will stop recording and stop sharing, and feel free to jump off. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, but I know we're at time too.